Thank you everyone for joining us here today for the LA Justice Fund informational webinar. My name is Rosie Arroyo, Senior Program Officer for Immigrant Integration at the California Community Foundation. Today's webinar is intended to describe the funding strategy for the LA Justice Fund, the activities that the program will cover, the application process, and a description of other administrative requirements. Once the presentation is completed, we will have time for Q&A. On the right side of your screen, you will see a dashboard where you can input your questions. We will also be recording the webinar and uploading it into our website and sharing the PowerPoint via email. Once the presentation is completed, we will do our best to go through all the questions that come up. Today, I'm also joined by Luis Gomez, Program Associate for the Civic Engagement and Public Policy Department, and Felicia Escobar, Principal Consultant for the LA Justice Fund. Previously, Felicia worked at the White House, where she served as Special Assistant to President Obama for Immigration Policy. In the White House, Felicia played a key role in the development and implementation of immigration executive actions pursued by the Obama administration, including the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals policy and the 2014 Immigration Executive Actions. During her time there, Felicia also managed the administration's strategy to enact meaningful, comprehensive immigration reform legislation and led the efforts of the White House Task Force on New Americans. Why is the LA Justice Fund needed? With one of the largest and most diverse immigrant populations in the nation, Los Angeles is already experiencing the devastating impact of the Trump administration's detention and deportation regime. 1 in 3 Los Angeles residents are foreign-born and approximately 900,000 are undocumented immigrants. These immigrants are an integral part of Los Angeles communities, families, and the economy, representing 43% of the county's workforce, contributing $232.9 billion to GDP and $7.9 billion in taxes. More than 80% of Los Angeles immigrants have resided in Los Angeles for a decade or more. In that time, many have set down deep roots in community, have started families, created businesses, purchased homes, and become community leaders. And under the new Trump enforcement policies, many could be targets for detention and deportation. Despite the grave consequences that deportation proceedings carry and the complex nature of immigration law, immigrants do not have a recognized right to appointed counsel. Many go through the immigration court process without lawyers. 68% of detained immigrants and 27% of non-detained immigrants are unrepresented in the removal proceedings. And representation matters. Immigrants who have lawyers are more than 5 times more likely to be released from detention and to succeed in challenges to their deportation and in some cases obtaining permanent relief. So about the LA Justice Fund. In response to increased enforcement and the growing demand for legal services for deportation proceedings, Los Angeles leaders have established the LA Justice Fund, an innovative multi-million-dollar fund to expand legal representation for immigrants. The LA Justice Fund is a partnership between the City of Los Angeles, the County of Los Angeles, Weingart Foundation, and the California Community Foundation. Each LA Justice Fund partner is committed to contributing funds, and the fund intends to raise up to $10 million over the next 2 years. CCF is serving as the LA Justice Fund fiscal sponsor, an entity that will contract with LA Justice Fund grantees. A little bit about the California Community Foundation. The California Community Foundation has a long history of supporting the integration of Los Angeles County's immigrants to be full participants in our social, civic, and economic life. In recent years, CCF has responded to major policy developments regarding immigration by supporting efforts and policies that expand and protect immigrant rights. Established in 1915, the Foundation's mission is to lead positive systemic change to strengthen Los Angeles community. And with assets close to $1.7 billion, the Foundation is both a grant maker and a fundraiser. Annually, the Foundation distributes approximately $24 million in competitive grants to support core programs in education, health, housing and economic opportunity, and immigrant integration. Other focus areas include civic engagement and public policy, nonprofit sustainability, and lending. Average grants range from $25,000 to $100,000 over 2 years in the LA County region. And to learn more, please visit our website at calfund.org. We will now turn it over and talk more about the LA Justice Fund. And as noted earlier, the purpose of the LA Justice Fund is to promote due process by expanding access to legal services for Los Angeles immigrants who are arrested and detained by immigration officials and subject to removal proceedings and or with a final order of removal. To accomplish this goal, The fund will implement a multi-pronged strategy that seeks to bolster existing removal defense efforts, increase the number of removal defense providers, and enhance and expand pro bono and lo bono legal services. I will now turn it over to Felicia, who will provide an overview of the request for proposals.
Thank you, Rosie, and thank you all for joining us today. We are excited to be able to talk to you about the request for proposals that was released on Monday, July 10th. So this is I'm going to go over some of the requirements and some of the background information, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. Just a reminder that to submit questions, if you go to the dashboard to the right of your screen, under the questions tab, you can use that to submit your questions in writing, and as Rosie said, we will try to answer as many of those questions as possible in the time that we have today. So again, thank you for joining, and I'll talk a little bit, just to give a little bit of an overview of the request for proposals. So in order to be eligible to apply for funding under the LA Justice Fund, entities have to be qualified nonprofit agencies or nonprofit legal services providers, and so I'm going to spend a little bit of time shortly explaining what that means. The funding categories that are available through this request for proposals are direct legal representation money, so that would be money to pay for programs that provide attorneys to individuals in removal proceedings. Grants will be made for this category of up to $300,000 annually. And then the second category of funding available is, we're calling it the Building Removal Defense Capacity category. So grants of up to $200,000 will be available annually in that category of funding. In terms of the populations to be served, we at the CCF worked with our partners in local government to determine who would be served, and through a rigorous process, the City Council and Board of Supervisors did determine the population that we intend to serve using through the Justice Fund. So individuals need to be first LA City or County residents in order to get access to legal representation and legal services, low income, and there are other city and county requirements related to individuals' backgrounds and criminal history. In addition, we are trying to prioritize, given the limited resources, certain vulnerable populations. So as Rosie pointed out, the detained population, immigrants who are detained in ICE facilities are very, over 2/3 are unlikely to have lawyers when they go through removal proceedings, which are very fast proceedings for detained individuals, and so we feel that it's important to prioritize resources for detained immigrants. And then there are other populations that I will also go into, individuals who are heads of households, have community ties, are victims of certain types of activity and crime that we also determined, that the city and county also determined would be important to prioritize resources for. In terms of who would the term of the grants that are available, we will have both 1 and 2-year term grants available to individual organizations. So your organization, if it desires 1-year grant funding, can apply, or if you want to request 2 years of funding, you can also apply for funding for a 2-year cycle as well. So grant eligibility criteria. So this is where I'll go into a little bit more of the details that are in the request for proposals. We are looking for agencies that have some experience and some expertise, because we really want to make sure that individuals are able to hit the ground running. Organizations are able to hit the ground running to serve the population that is very much in need of legal services. So the kind of key focus areas we're looking to support, one, nonprofit agencies and legal services providers that are based in Los Angeles. We want those organizations to have, knowledge of the immigrant community in Los Angeles, and a track record and capacity to provide legal services. So there are 2 tiers of two categories of organizations that can apply. So one would be an organization that has, more experience than maybe others in providing legal representation, so at least 5 years of experience, and or perhaps receive an organization that receives grant money from and are contracting with either the federal or state government. So you do not have to meet every one of those criteria to be categorized in Tier 1. We're just asking you to be in at least meet one of those criteria. The second category of organizations we're looking to fund are organizations that have some experience providing legal services, but perhaps they haven't been providing representation to people in the immigration court system. So we know that there are a lot of organizations in Los Angeles who have organized and provided Know Your Rights workshops and trainings, and have also helped people fill out immigration benefits applications, things like DACA and citizenship. So we are also looking to fund organizations that fit that category, so have some experience but are looking to expand to removal defense work. Organizations we also are looking to support are groups that have strong relationships with the community and with organizations that directly serve and have direct contact with the immigrant community, and also organizations that that have some capacity and experience building collaboration. So with other legal services providers, with law firms, private bar associations, and others, we're looking for these types of organizations that can draw on previous relationships that they have with individual different members of the community and other legal leaders in the legal community in Los Angeles. So I'm going to, next slide, I'll go over a little bit more of the funding categories. So I mentioned them kind of broadly. The two big funding categories, again, are direct legal representation and building removal defense capacity. So under direct legal representation, under that category, we are looking to prioritize, significant amount of money available in the Justice Fund to that area and that focus. So at this point, we're considering up to $2.5 million annually to support direct legal representation. And again, we want to support organizations that have existing removal defense programs, but also organizations that have done some legal services work, but not necessarily removal defense yet, and are looking to get in that space. And the types of activities that we would fund include, interviewing and screening of individuals, preparation for court hearings, actually representing people in immigration court proceedings, the full spectrum of hearings, whether it's a merits hearing, a bond hearing, or other types of hearings, assistance with individuals that actually have access or have relief available via the immigration system, and then post-release legal services as well. And this is just, I would say intended to be a broad categories of funding that we will be supporting, or activities that we will be supporting. Obviously, there may be things that we did not think of that you all will know as legal services providers and nonprofit entities, and we look forward to reviewing applications, and we will certainly consider other activities, although within reason, and it will depend on kind of the full strength of the application. The other big broad category is the building removal defense capacity. So we have up to $500,000 annually available in that category, and this category is both to provide technical assistance and training and mentoring to new organizations that are building removal defense service programs, but also to help with coordination of pro bono legal services, trying to find ways to encourage people from the private bar to get involved and to help support your entities, and also thinking about creative ways that we could use low bono partnerships to increase and expand access to legal services. So again, these are intended to be kind of broad categories of and suggestions of the types of activities, but we will review all applications very thoroughly when we receive them. Okay, so we got a question that came in from folks that are listening in around Tier 1. does the 5 years experience include other litigation experience, or is it removal defense only? So it would be representing individuals in removal proceedings in front of the courts. So so yes, it would be, you know, it would generally be removal defense, removal proceedings work. So next slide just goes over the population that to be served. So again, we're looking to support people who are, you know, in active removal proceedings, maybe have an old final order of removal. They get, because of the new priorities of the Trump administration, they get picked up and might have opportunities to reopen their cases or have other forms of relief available to them. And then individuals who are arrested and detained by immigration officials. This is kind of the broad category of people that we consider to be at risk of removal, and we expect the population that gets served to be in that group. In addition, they need to be city or county residents of Los Angeles, and again, need to be low income, and we define that as individuals with incomes below 200% of the federal poverty level. And then again, there will be additional criteria that individuals will have to meet. There are certain individuals who've been convicted of certain violent crimes, that violent felonies, that will not be able to get access to services unless they meet certain exceptions. There's also a population of people who may have been convicted of certain types of crimes related to trafficking and pimping, that would also not have access to access to legal representation under the program. And we will, as we finalize the grantees, we will work with you all to determine how you're able to implement the city and county policies that are a part of the Justice Fund, but wanted to make sure that you understood those and that we flagged them for you. The other kind of priority populations that we're hoping individuals will get served are, you know, as I mentioned, detained immigrants, individuals with community ties, individuals who are heads of household and are going to be supporting who support other individuals, children, spouses, etc., unaccompanied children or children who came to the U.S. as youth, so documented folks perhaps, also veterans and individuals with protection-based claims, so individuals who might be eligible for asylum or want to seek asylum in the immigration court system, and then victims of crime, domestic violence, and human trafficking. So this is the core population of individuals that will be served. So individuals, there's a couple questions that have come in about whether individuals who are housed at detention centers outside of LA County would be eligible for funding. So they will, if they are Los Angeles County and city residents, they will be eligible. We understand that there are limited detention facilities in Los Angeles County, and that many people who are Los Angeles County residents actually get detained in places outside of the county. So those individuals will be eligible even if they are physically detained outside of the county. And in terms of the priority population, so we are, as I mentioned, we're going to use most of our money to support detained individuals who are detained. But in the priority population, you know, those individuals might have been released from detention, maybe because they got actual legal services through the Justice Fund, but they still have a case that is pending in the immigration courts, and so those individuals could also still be served. And so we'll move to the next slide. And again, you know, as you all are working on your proposal, you can certainly submit additional questions to us as well as you're working through the details of your proposal. So the next slide talks about just kind of the core elements of the grant application. So there are 4 core elements, and you can actually see them on. If you go into the system that we have, we're going to put it up on the screen actually. You can see the different elements and where you would actually file them. So one is just basic applicant information, and so this is kind of just a general piece of information. I'll wait for Luis to have it pop up. There it is. Okay. Okay, so if you click on applicant information, you'll see the basic information that's required. You know, the name of your leadership, your executive director, contact information, tax ID number, etc. So this is basic information we want everyone to provide for us, and also help us understand which category of do you fall in the tier 1 or the tier 2 category of organizations. The next next bit of information we're going to want from everyone is the project information. So we know that your organizations do lots of different things, but we want to understand kind of the specific project that you're asking for information, that you're asking for funding under the LA Justice Fund. So you would click on the project information button tab right there, and you would fill out that information. And then the meat of the application will be your proposal narrative, and so I'll talk a little bit about that as well. But in addition to that, there will be some other background materials that we'll want you to submit with your application, so with your proposal. So information about bios of staffers that will be assigned and affiliated with the project, your budget, your project budget, as well as your agency budget. We want to know kind of your board members, so we understand kind of the leadership of your organization, and then also any recent federal 990 tax forms. So I'll let me spend a few minutes talking about the narrative, which is the meat of the application. There are kind of core areas that we need. We would like to get more information from you on, and there's a couple of pages in the actual RFP, pages 8 and 9, that go into much more detail about the organizational background, but about the proposal narrative and what we're seeking to get from folks in this document. But first is a description, the organizational background. So we want to understand the mission of your organization, the goals and strategies of your organization, what you kind of do, as your bread and butter work. And we want to, and this is an area where you will also provide information about, the work you're already doing in this space, the work, current and past experience of providing legal representation, your current caseload capacity, and what you think, if you receive state or federal funding to do this type of work, we'd like some information about that. And the services and activities that you already provide. I would note that if you're filling, we are suggesting and encouraging people to, organizations to file joint applications. And so if you are going to file an application with a number of organizations, we'll want this information from, we'll want this information about each organization that's a part of your consortium. So that will be important just to include in the background. The next section is the project description. So this is where you will describe, the population you hope to serve with funding from the Justice Fund, the strategy or strategies that you seek to pursue. So if you're seeking funding just for direct legal representation, that's fine, but you can seek funding for both direct legal representation and the building removal defense capacity category of funding as well. We want to know kind of if you've thought through the challenges of reaching this population and how you might try to address those challenges. And then there are, specific questions about both categories of funding. So in the direct legal representation category, again, we want to make sure we understand what you're already doing and, how additional support would help you strengthen your program, if it would allow you to expand your program, which is the goal. If it would also, the work that you already do to monitor and supervise and track your caseload, and how you will, whether you have the capacity to monitor, supervise, and track more of a larger caseload. Under the building removal defense capacity questions, we're looking to understand kind of, again, the work you're already doing in this space. If you already have a program to reach out to pro bono volunteers, we want to understand what that work is and how you will seek to augment and strengthen and expand work in that space. How you will work to sustain your voluntary, your pro bono work and your low bono partnerships. And then in addition to that, we want to make sure we understand, you know, if you think that these are strategies that others could actually adopt and how you would propose doing that work as well. The next section is the project budget. So again, this can be included as an attachment where you you explain a little bit more about how you would use money, the timeline for how you would actually implement your the proposal over 1 or 2 years. If there is a ramp up period, we want to have that information as well. And then the final 2 sections, one is related to outcomes and value and evaluation. So from our perspective, it's really important that we track how this program gets kicked off and the progress over time, because we do hope to build more support for legal representation. So we are going to be working with a national entity that has experience actually running a legal representation and legal services programs, particularly for immigrants, and also has experience evaluating those programs. So that organization is, we hope to announce that organization soon, but they are an organization that will be helpful in providing coordination and training, but also helping us with the evaluation of the program. So we want to understand what you already are doing, and we'll certainly give you access to that organization, but before we do that, we want to better understand what you already do to track outcomes, if you would be, you know, willing and able to actually document compliance with the city and the county eligibility requirements, and what steps you think you need to be taken to make sure that you're able to track and monitor and hopefully help us build support for the program in the long term. And then the final category is optional, but we're also looking to understand how we can, you know, what other things we can do besides funding to actually support your work. You know, also what we can do to help strengthen relationships with the immigration court system or detention facilities. We know that if individual organizations do decide to represent detained immigrants, they're going to have to interact with the detention facilities, and if there are ways for us or the city and county to help, we want to understand those as well. So that's an overview. I think we got a few questions already that I can try to answer. So one question is, can an organization submit an application for both types of funding? And the answer is yes. We certainly welcome that if your organization is interested in funding in both categories, and we will review your applications. So the next question is related to if you're working collaboratively, whether each organization needs to submit their own application, or whether they can submit or whether they should submit them jointly. You know, I think we would be open to either option. It will probably be easier for us to review a joint application if it's all filed together. I don't know, Rosie, if you have other thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, that's correct. But if there's going to be one lead agency that will be the fiscal sponsor for managing the funds for the program, then that organization can submit the application on behalf of that collaborative. But we would need additional attachments from all the additional partners that will be participating in that collaborative.
So, I mean, that's our larger overview. I know we're looking at some of the questions that are coming in right now to determine if we can give you all clarity on some of the questions.
Hi everyone, this is Luis. I am going to spend just a few minutes going through the really fun technical aspect of walking you through our platform, so that you can go online and submit an application. So the first thing you'll want to see or want to visit is our website. Again, that's at www.calfund.org/apply-LAJF. And this is where you'll find it's a centralized location for all the most relevant information, including an overview of the RFP, where to download, where you can download a copy of the RFP, and also a link to apply or a link to access our platform so you can submit an application. So if you have not done so already, you'll need to register for the application. or excuse me, for a username and password, which you can access from the Apply Here link, and then use the Register tab to create a profile. If your organization doesn't have a username or an account with our platform here at CCF, then you'll have to create that information as well. It's pretty simple. Do understand that there is a little bit of a lag time as we have to approve your username and password before you can log in, so it's not immediate. Once you have logged in once you've received your username and password, you would log in to the home screen, and let me go ahead and log in again here. You would be able to, that's not the home screen. You'll log into the home screen here, and the LA Justice Fund application is a little hidden. You have to click this expansion link where the LA Justice Fund is here at the bottom, and you'll access the application. You can save it and return at a later time. If you do choose to do that, it's important to note that you want to when you log in again at a later time, you want to make sure you click from your saved applications area here. So that is all for the technical fun stuff, and we are going to take a few minutes. We received a few more questions, so we'll just go ahead and work through sorting these out and answer them. If you have additional questions, now would be a great time to submit them in the question tab below. So I'm just going to mute the mic for a few seconds here.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Luis, for walking through the technical IT system. I know that's always difficult for me, learning how to use those systems. So please just let us know if you have questions. And as Luis said, you know, if you haven't filed before and you need to create a new user ID, please make sure to do that with enough time for CCF to approve your password and your login so that you can file your application by the deadline. So in terms of some of the questions that have come in, so one question we got was related to experience providing support and legal representation for individuals. And so the question was related to what if your organization has provided legal services, legal representation, but only in the bond hearing context? Would they be eligible to receive funding? So the answer is yes, they would be eligible for funding. I think that, you know, if you've provided that funding if you provided that service for over 5 years, then you could categorize yourself in the tier 1 category. If you have provided it for less than 5 years, then you would be in tier 2 category. But we would consider that legal representation. Of course, we'll be reviewing applications from a number of entities who may have provided additional types of services, and that will be something that we will weigh when we're evaluating your application. The next question is, does the person have to be in actual ICE custody, or can the person be in removal proceedings but living in the community? So as I said, we're going to be prioritizing a significant majority of our funding for actual people who are actually in detention facilities right now. There will be some funding available to individuals who perhaps had been detained in the past, but are now living in the community. But given that you know, removal proceedings for people who are detained are generally on a fast track, we want to make sure that and that population is much more likely to not have representation because of numerous barriers, we will be prioritizing funding for detained immigrants. So next question, let's see if we can find some other questions.
Yeah.
That will answer, yeah. So the next question is related to individuals with protection-based claims in the priority categories. You know, if they're seeking asylum at the border, would they be eligible for legal representation if they intend to reside in Los Angeles upon release? So that is, you know, I think that's something that we would have to review applications very thoroughly and better understand the concept. But, you know, generally we're looking for individuals, we're going to be using funding to represent individuals who have existing ties to the community. So someone who's lived here for, you know, a year or two, maybe or several years, and maybe they leave and come back and then they get detained, that would be a different category of individuals than, you know, and someone who has just recently, for the first time, sought asylum at the border and is thinking of residing here. If it's that population would not likely, the second population would not likely be able to get access to legal services and representation. But if there's someone who's lived here and then recently left and then get detained when they're trying to reenter, then you know, I think perhaps they would be eligible. But again, we'll want to see kind of more specificity in terms of the proposal that that organizations are submitting. Okay, so then there's a question also about kind of the turnaround for review once an application is submitted. So all proposals, all applications are due at 12 noon on July 31st. And we are hoping for a 4 to 6 week review process. We'd like to be able to award grants and make grant announcements by early September because we know these resources are very desperately needed. So that is our general timeline, and we'll talk a little bit more as we wrap the call about some additional timeline and review process parameters, but that is the general timeline.
Sure. Yes, there's one question here that asks if an organization has received funding from CCF under a separate program or has an active grant, if they're still eligible to apply for funding for the LA Justice Fund. The answer is yes. This is a separate fund, so organizations, whether they have been a past CCF grantee or have an active grant in a different program, they are eligible for the LA Justice Fund.
Okay, so there's a question about removal defense capacity, that area of focus. Do we have to do all of the bulleted activities to receive funding? And you do not have to do all of those activities. You know, we assume that there may be a group of people that want to focus on pro bono coordination, and we're willing to support that work. There may be organizations that want to help provide technical assistance to groups that are looking to expand to removal defense work. That could be a separate category. You do not have to do both pro bono and kind of technical assistance and mentoring of new programs. So that is something that is available to people. So there's a question related to whether an individual is released from custody during representation, would they still be able to be supported through LA Justice Fund funding? Would they still be eligible to get legal representation? And the answer is yes. You know, we understand that a good, what could be sometimes a good outcome is because of legal representation, an individual is released from custody and their case is moved to, say, the non-detained docket. Those individuals could still receive representation, and so that's something that it will be available. So there's a question related to are Know Your Rights trainings a requirement for all applicants under Tier 2? That is not a requirement for all applicants under Tier 2. It was just just a category of the types of services that individual organizations could have been providing to get access to to the Tier 2 funding. It could be the case that an organization has just done Know Your Rights training, and we would certainly look at their application in reviewing whether they would have access to to support from the fund. There are cases where organizations just provide, say, citizenship application assistance, or just provide DACA assistance, or assistance for U visas. Those organizations would be eligible to receive funding, and would be evaluated on the strength of their application.
Yes, there's also a question here regarding asking, will the grant be open for applications again in 1 year or not for 2 years? So funding is available for 1 and 2 years. The application will, in terms of any additional funding available, will really depend on the availability of funding. So as we receive proposals and release the first set of initial grants, then that will also then determine what the remaining balance and availability of funding for ongoing work.
Okay, so there's a question about whether, in one of the initial announcements about the LA Justice Fund, talked about supporting pilot programs. I think we consider pilot programs programs like organizations that have provided DACA and citizenship applications but haven't yet provided removal defense. We would categorize those as pilots. I guess you could use that term. That would be the type. Those would be the types of programs we'd be willing to support. A pilot program could be, a new pro bono coordination effort, and so that's we're using kind of a different jargon now, but we consider some of the work that we're funding, and we're hoping for some innovation that organizations can consider piloting, that could be used by other organizations in the future as models of efforts that they can pursue and replicate. So there's a question about if staff bring years of immigration experience, would that count towards the years of experience of the actual program? So I think we'd have to evaluate the applications. Generally, we're looking for an actual organization's experience, and obviously, if you have strong people on your staff that have years of experience, that would be great. But it's not. But it wouldn't necessarily count towards the 5 years of experience. I would just remind people, I want to reiterate that in tier 1, there are 3 ways you can qualify for tier 1. So you can have 5 or more years of experience doing legal representation work, or you could be a current subcontractor or contractor with the state or federal government, or you could be a previous contractor with the state and federal government. So there are 3 categories or 3 ways you can qualify under the Tier 1 category. So do you want to answer that, Rosie?
Sure. There's a question here that asks if they apply for under 2 categories, can they apply up to 500,000 total? I mean, I think yes, but again, we will have to evaluate the application and depending on the proposed activities and organization's experience. But yes, organizations can request up to 500,000.
So we have a question about for Tier 2, does your organization have to be a recognized or accredited entity via the through the DOJ standards? The answer is no. Obviously, it will, if you are DOJ accredited and recognized, that speaks to, I think, the strength of your organization, but you do not, it's not a requirement. Again, just under Tier 2, I know I went over the Tier 1 category, but going over Tier 2 category again. So these are organizations that would fit into that category, or groups that have offered some form of legal services to the immigrant community. So know your rights trainings and workshops is one category that could have you, that would count, but other categories include helping people file immigration benefits applications before USCIS, and as I understand it, you don't have to technically be BIA accredited to do to file benefit applications before USCIS. Although I know it is something that they do recognize and support. So those are the categories of groups, and there may be organizations that do know your rights trainings and workshops, but aren't DOJ accredited, and so they could still apply for the funding. But again, we will be evaluating all the applications, in a comprehensive way, and be thinking through kind of the strength of all the applications that come in when we decide how to use the resources we have available. Okay, we have one more question, category of questions. A few people submitted this question related to detained immigrants and whether they can still receive representation under the LA Justice Fund if they've been released. So again, the answer is yes. If an individual is detained and through your services, your organization is able to successfully get someone released from detention, and they could be released on orders of recognizance, or they could be released with some kind of other alternatives to detention, like an ankle monitor. Those individuals would still be eligible for legal representation through the LA Justice Fund. Their case might move to the non-detained docket, might not, depending on what this administration decides, how they decide to categorize them, and we understand that. But they would be eligible to continue to receive legal representation services through the LA Justice Fund. So I think that is all the questions we're gonna take for now. Again, if you have, I know there were some others we weren't able to get to, but if you want to just email us to, you can email Rosie Arroyo and also the LA Justice Fund general email account that I'm monitoring. That this is Felicia. You can feel free to do that. There's also some frequently asked questions available on our LA Justice Fund website, and we're providing here the link to that again, so you can review those questions as well. And we will do our best to answer as many of those questions as possible as you're working on your application. So I'll turn it over to Rosie to help close out the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Felicia. This concludes our presentation. We want to thank everybody again for joining us. We will be saving the recording of today's webinar on our website along with the PowerPoint. We will also email the PowerPoint to all the participants. So if you have any questions, we also have uploaded a FAQ, frequently asked questions that you might have on the website that go over some of the questions that were also highlighted during the webinar today. So if you have any additional questions, please let us know. Grant awards are expected to be announced in September September of 2017, and we look forward to hearing from you. So thank you again for joining us today.